Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to update you on the fall schedule. I know that several of you were asking if I'm going to teach the English 32, which is the New Testament section of this class, sort of follows on from English 31. I got my schedule the other day, and I have not been assigned the English 32 class. Uh, Now, I probably have enough influence and could pull some strings, and if I really wanted to teach it, I probably could, but I've decided not to for reasons I want to try to explain to you now. Um, at the basis of my entire system of pedagogy, and what got me into this business to begin with was my deep concern at a profound failure in our culture of our citizens to be able to think critically. And when I got into this business a long time ago, it was with a very clear sense of mission in my head to try to address that and do what I could with whatever time I'm given to try to alleviate that serious cultural problem. It's dangerous, and it's the reason why we're in the mess now. If I had to point to one reason why we're in the mess now that we're in, it's because our citizens can't think. Uh, and so I got into this business, and at the basis of every class I teach, including this one, that's bedrock for me, that the goal, whatever the material is, Bible lit, LGBT lit, women in lit, um, freshman composition, whatever the material is, the bedrock goal is to help foster a citizen who can think, a citizen who can take the evidence, look at the evidence, combine your evidence with bits of other people's evidence, accommodate biases whenever possible, and then take that whole thing and exercise critical ability upon it to arrive at some kind of rational conclusion. That's what American citizens are supposed to do in my mind. And again, at the basis of everything I teach, that's the bedrock premise upon which I stand, including in this class. So, what I've noticed lately in our culture is that's becoming harder and harder to do. Uh, and again, in my opinion, and I'm no sociologist, but I can see what's in front of me and draw rational conclusions. There's been a resurgence of a particularly toxic kind of fundamentalism in this country. It's always been around. I think it developed, it was brought over by the Puritans, and that sort of odd fundamentalist approach to certain things is locked into the way Americans think in some ways. And I lay it to the Puritan heritage, however it comes from doesn't matter. It's always been around, but in the last few years, there's been an uptick, a resurgence of this particularly toxic kind of fundamentalism that is really antithetical to any kind of critical thinking and any kind of desire or ability to put things together and consider evidence and arrive at rational conclusions. I'm not talking about faith. Please hear what I'm saying. Faith is an entirely different category of experience. I'm not talking about faith. I'm talking about this very dangerous fundamentalist approach. And it's partially due to the fact that so many of the candidates in these elections are pandering to this lowest common denominator, so to speak. So it concerns me deeply, but that's my stuff and not really yours. But it reflects upon the reason for the decision I've made. Uh, I'm wondering if it's even possible to do a class like this, given the atmosphere that this toxic fundamentalism has created. Um, Jimmy Carter, one of my sort of heroes, has written a long time ago that the greatest danger to a civilized culture is fundamentalism of any kind. And he doesn't categorize Islamic fundamentalism, Christian fundamentalism. He just says fundamentalism is the greatest danger to civilization. I tend to agree with him. Anyway, that aside, I have found this class extremely difficult to teach this term. And part of it, I think, is due to the general cultural atmosphere of this fundamentalist sort of prison. Please understand, again, I'm not talking about faith and I'm not talking about religious practices. I'm talking about a certain approach to life that can be designated as fundamentalist. And there's been a resurgence of it in my mind. The reason for my decision, in my mind, there's a resurgence of it that is so powerful and so strong that rational people are having a lot of trouble these days trying to negotiate this world, given the sort of mindless forces that are right. So anyway, I sort of feel like maybe it's not possible to do this kind of class in this cultural and political climate. That could be personal stuff. And so I just don't want to take on the struggle next term. And that, to those of you who've really struggled and really worked and really advanced, there's been some amazing movement in this class. But we're down to like 12 people. Everybody else has quit. And that's disturbing. Everybody else has given up the struggle. So I'm kind of speaking to people who don't need to hear this speech because you get it. But I just want to try to explain my decision to you. So the other option could be, maybe the online environment is not the best for this kind of a class. It's always hard to foster critical thinking. And in a way, it's even harder when, we're not all physically together. We can't look at each other and talk to each other. And I think maybe that might be it's certainly a downside of online education, in spite of its many upsides. So anyway, long story short, I'm not going to do English 32. I'm not going to do English 32. However, I did mention to my dean that some of you would be interested in taking the 32 class, and that if any of my other colleagues were wanting to do it on campus face-to-face, it might work a little better. Now, I have always taught these classes for the last 20 years. They've been sort of my responsibility, and so it may be that none of my other colleagues will want to do it. But I broached the possibility that there might be a section of English 32 New Testament Lit offered in the fall, just taught on campus and not taught by me. Okay. The good news is that I've been assigned 2 sections of English 2, which is a critical thinking class using literature as the primary material. So, I've got 2 sections of those. They're both online, of course, and I'll be teaching those. My approach to those will be exactly the same as our approach has been in this Bible literature class. So if you like this kind of critical thinking approach, and if you haven't taken English 2, you might be interested. You know my approach, you know how I work, and it's going to be the same approach, just using different literature this time, and probably a little bit easier literature for some folks. to think critically about. So I'd be delighted to see any of you in either of those two sections in the fall. It's English 002. I forget the exact title of it. It's Literature and Critical Thinking or something like that. I don't remember the exact title of the class, but you'll see it. You'll see my name in the schedule of classes. Okay, so I just wanted to let you know that I've made that decision, and I pretty much already made the decision before I got my fall schedule, and I probably, if they offered me the 32, I probably was going to say, why don't you give it to somebody else? So I just wanted to let you know, and I hope you're having a good week getting your papers ready to go. We'll be working some more with those next week, and then we're almost done. We'll have some final thoughts and maybe a final exercise and try to pull everything together for you. Okay, so have a wonderful weekend. Bye for now.